I will speak on the digits of primes and squares. And my talk will be a survey of several results obtained with Christian Mauduit and Michael Dromota. So first I will describe the background of the problem. And this is a picture of Gelfond, who stated the original conjecture on this subject. So in Gelfond's paper in '68, Gelfond studies the sum of digits in arithmetic progressions and shows the equidistribution of them. And so he obtains he obtains the fact that if we count integers in an arithmetic progression such that sum of digits in a base q is also in an arithmetic progression, then the quantity obtained is asymptotically x over the product of the two modulus plus an error term, which is win by a power of x. And at the end of this paper, Gelfond states two problems. So he asked to try to do the same question, but restricted not to an arithmetic progression, but to prime numbers. And in a second question, he asked to do the same if we replace the arithmetic progression, which is a polynomial of degree 1, by a polynomial of greater degree. So the first case being the squares. And after several papers, for instance by D'Artige and Tenenbaum, so this problem of Gelfond was solved by Christian Mauduit and myself in 2005, published in 2010. And we show the following estimate. This is an exponential sum related to the problem with sum over p, exponential of 2i pi alpha s of p for any alpha such that q minus 1 times alpha is not an integer. And we get an estimate, and people used to analytic number theory know that from this type of estimate we can deduce interesting result on the distribution in arithmetic progressions. And so we could solve the problem of Gelfond in this way. And actually we get it in a quantitative way with a good error term. Then, but published 1 year before, we study the more difficult problem of the sum of digits of primes fixed. So we take a value k, and k should be central in the sense of the mean of the sum of digits is mu q, q minus 1 over 2. And if we take k to be close to this mean times log in base q of x, then it is possible to solve the problem of finding the number of integers, of prime numbers, whose sum of digits is equal to k, which is a very precise result. This is called the local result, and Erdős discussed this result, I think, with Christian and probably with Andras. And was considering this result as hopelessly difficult. But from the previous paper, our methods with some more extensions permitted to solve this problem. Then we turned to the problem of the Gelfand conjecture for squares, squares being the first case of polynomial. And we could also solve this problem with Christian Mauduit and find the corresponding exponential sum estimate, which produce the corresponding Gelfand theorem. So it is interesting to notice, I have no time to develop this, but it is interesting to notice that the method that we used for the primes, of course, is a guideline to start the problem for the squares, but it's not sufficient at all because the exponential sums that arise with the problem of the squares, which are Gauss sums, they are not of the same kind as the exponential sums arising for the primes, and the corresponding estimates are not sufficient. That's a big difference between the two, and this can be explained roughly in the fact that the primes up to x have a size which is up to x. But the squares of the integers up to x have size x squared. So they have much more digits. And this makes the problem much more difficult. The fact that we have primes, of course it produces many technical difficulties which are usual with primes. Squares look very much simpler at first sight, but they have much more digits, and this makes the problem much more difficult. So, but we could solve it. And after solving the Gelfand conjecture for primes and for squares, the next big problem was to generalize. So the Gelfand problem is closely related to the two-Morse sequence. I will speak about the two-Morse sequence later, but the next problem after the two-Morse sequence, which is natural, is to consider the Rudin-Shapiro sequence. And the difference between the two-Morse sequence and the Rudin-Shapiro sequence is that the Rudin-Shapiro sequence, actually, if we write it like that, you see that we count the number of 1, 1 by this sum in the digit expansion module in base 2, and there are some overlapping words. So this is the simplest example with overlapping words, because when you shift by 1, there is one overlapping digit. And this causes a technical problem in our work. And from harmonic analysis point of view, so if we consider this sequence, the Rudin-Shapiro sequence, -1 to the number of words 1, 1 in the digital expansion modulo in base 2 of n, then it is very well known that the Fourier transform of this sequence, which I do not define, it is well known that it is very flat. It means that the infinite norm is very small. And since by Cauchy-Schwarz and Parseval, the L2 norm is 1, it is easy to show that the L1 norm is also very well known in terms of size, and this show when one knows our proof on the previous problems that our proof doesn't work for this sequence. So anyway, we developed further arguments, and we were able to solve the so-called Gelfond problem, because Gelfond did not formulate it, but the analogous problem for the Rydin-Shapiro sequence. And not only for the very simplest Rydin-Shapiro sequence, but instead of considering just the word 1, 1, we could consider the word 1 anything 1, and we prove the corresponding estimates, and also we could prove the result for the word 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 d times. Of course, for d equal 2, this is the Rydin-Shapiro sequence, and in the previous slide, for delta equals 0, it was also the Rydin-Shapiro sequence. So, and for these two generalizations of the Rydin-Shapiro sequence, we could estimate the corresponding exponential sum in a satisfactory manner, and therefore obtain the good distribution for this sequence. And it is interesting to note that this problem with the Rydin-Shapiro sequence led us to generalize and to try to find a general framework so that we could solve the problems of this type in a more easy manner, to have a guideline how to do it. And so actually there are two very important facts that make that we can obtain a result on the distribution of the digits. The first fact is that we need to have a control on the carry. So this definition is ugly, especially in a quite short talk. But what does it mean? It just means that we are the carry does not propagate very far, and that we have a function f that understands this property. So we have a function that understands the digital structure of the integers, in the sense that if the carry does not propagate far, then we will be able to consider only the digits up to a point. When we make this product, and this product, you should consider that it should have the property to eliminate the higher digits. And what it says here is that really it eliminates them because only the digits up to the index kappa plus rho need to be considered, except for an acceptable number of exceptions. Of course, this definition comes from the first paper on the sum of digits of primes, where we add this idea, but this is generalized and put in a so-called abstract way, in this way. And the second property is that we need to have control of the Fourier transform, even of the sequence shifted by multiplication by Q. And if we have these two conditions satisfied, then we can hope to get a result for the corresponding function f. And this is what was proved in this paper on Rudin-Shapiro. So provided that a function satisfies the carry property and the Fourier estimate property, then there is a good distribution of the exponential sum. This is what is proved in this paper, and as an application, we use this for Rudin-Shapiro. And of course, this can be done for the Möbius function instead of the von Mangold function. This is a classical change that is well known for analytic number theorists. And Clemens Müllner, who is here at the bottom of the room, has proved and now published in Duke Journal that this result, which was for Rudin-Shapiro sequences and these somewhat more general sequences, can be actually applied to all automatic sequences, and he has developed a full theory to be able to do that. I forgot to mention, but I mention it now, that we also solved the Gelfond conjecture for polynomials of higher degree, but not in a completely satisfactory manner, because we could solve it only for a very big base, not in base 2, for instance. And the base actually is very big because we could solve it only for a base that grows more than exponentially in the degree of the polynomial. So even for degree 3, the size of the base is astronomical. So this remains an open problem to show this result, and I think this is one of the main problems remaining in this field, to show Gelfond conjecture for cubes and in base 2. And now a new result, because for the moment I mentioned only results a few years old. And this result is very new. So with Michael Dremota and Christian Mauduit, we were able to study the distribution of primes in 2 bases. So we take 2 coprime bases, and we take F to be strongly Q1 multiplicative and G to be strongly Q2 multiplicative. So as an example, you can take just E of alpha S in base Q1 of N, and for F, and an analogous for G with the sum of digits. And with a technical condition here that this is not with an alpha which is of a special form, then we are again able to prove an estimate for the exponential sum that permits to obtain the distribution of the prime numbers such that the sum, say, for example, the sum of digits in base Q1 is equidistributed in residue classes modulo M1, and the sum of digits of these primes modulo Q2 in base Q2 is also equidistributed modulo M2. So this is, of course, quite technical to prove this result. And we get an estimate which is not a win of a power of x. Here we win also, only this complicated exponent. And the reason for that, the technical reason for this, is that since we have two bases, it's quite complicated to handle. And for one term, we have to use a variant of Baker's theorem. And this variant of Baker's theorem does not permit to win a power of x. And that's where we only win something smaller. So I have still a few minutes, so I can speak a little on the two-Morse sequence. And so this is a two-Morse sequence. So you can see the two-Morse sequence. So there are several definitions on the two-Morse sequence. So since so it can be defined by substitutions, by recurrence, or the definition that I prefer in some sense is that it is the sum of digits in base 2 modulo 2. And so this two-Morse sequence has the property that it's the symbolic complexity of the sequence, which is the number of factors of this sequence, is linear, and it has a zero topological entropy. And so this two-Morse sequence is very simple for this reason. So there is a very simple algorithm that produces this sequence, and this is in some sense, in several sense, a very simple sequence. And now, again, with the same authors, we have studied the two-Morse sequence along the squares. So we pick the values of the sequence, the two-Morse sequence, with square position. So 0 is a square, 1 is a square, 4 is a square, 9 is a square, 16 is a square, etc. We take only the value at square position. And this produces a new sequence. And is this sequence still very simple? And it was conjectured by Alouche and Shalit and proved by Moshe that the subword complexity of this sequence was maximal. So maybe it was not so simple sequence. And we proved that both the letter 0 and 1 had the frequency 1/2. And what is the frequency of a given word? And the answer is that the sequence along the squares is normal. So just by this construction, we built a normal sequence. So any word is obtained. So if the word is of length k, is obtained with probability 1/2 to the k. So there was a construction mentioned just before by Champernon, and only few explicit constructions are known. They are of the same kind. And so with Michael Dremota and Christian Mauduit, we could prove that the sequence of two Morse along the squares is normal. And this theorem provides a new method to construct normal numbers in a given base. And I think that I have not really time to develop the ideas and tools because time is over. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
In your last slide, you used squares. If you replace squares with cubes, for instance.
For cube, no. Nothing. There is no technique as method.
So
No problem.
no.
No, it's the same like.
It's probably true, but we don't know how to do it.
Other questions? If not, let's thank the speaker again.